Universities are embracing alternative funding models for sustainability and to ease reliance on student fees to fund their operations. Management University of Africa Vice Chancellor Professor Washington Okeo says the light of specification and courses to be offered under the competency-based curriculum, universities have to adapt to new business models like setting up entrepreneurship hubs to generate revenue. Our senior reporter Regina Manyara engages Professor Okeo on possible income incubation and CBC transition preparedness for universities.
2633. Of those 3 years are going to be spent in pursuing university education. Question is, are universities ready for the enrollment of CBC students? Tonight, we discuss this capacity that universities are building in light of this particular dispensation. And joining us is none other than Professor Washington Okeo. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
As the Vice Chancellor of the Management University of Africa, do you think universities in the country are ready for the enrollment of students under the CBC system?
Thank you very much, Regina, for the question. CBC system is a very, very important system, if I may say, because it addresses the issue of education, which is at the core of any society and at the core of Kenya as a country. CBC is coming in to replace the 844 system of education. And 844 system of education came in as a system that was meant to bring in the practical aspect early enough of education and instill it in students at the foundation level. The universities, when they receive the CBC students into universities, they must know what it is that those students have learned in the first place. And that is key, because sometimes universities may start teaching content that probably may have already been covered in the earlier years of the students. And so that is important. Then number two, the universities need to look at the resources that they need. These resources come in various ways. They are soft resources and they are hard resources. For example, the capacity in terms of lecturers who are coming in to train the new students coming in from CBC. And there are also the physical spaces, like the lecture rooms, the theaters, the laboratories, and all that will require, the facilities that the universities will require to be able to train and teach these learners when they come in.
You say that universities need to tweak, the studies that they are currently offering to suit, ahead of the enrollment of the CBC students.
Yes, and I think that's a very good angle that you have brought. The CBC system of education has got three pathways that they have, modeled. There is the STEM pathway, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Then they have social pathway, social and business, and then they have the arts and sports pathway. So those three pathways are the ones which CBC basically have designed or have been designed for CBC. And it makes sense because the entire space where the country's economy is and the social structure of the country are actually embedded within these three pathways.
So we are likely to see universities, unlike what we have experienced in the 844, you walk in through the door, you'll have an engineering student within the same facility, as well as one who is pursuing maybe their social sciences in the same, under one roof. But then maybe in the future we're going to have, institutions of higher learning that are predominantly either STEM or into social and business, as well as arts and sports.
True, Regina. And one of the reasons for that, for what you said, is because CBC is very, very resource intensive. So if you look at the resource requirements for STEM, for example, it is very expensive to set up a science subject or curricula. It is very expensive to set up, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and so on, because they require a lot of equipment, and not to mention that even the lecturers coming in to teach those are also very expensive because of their background and their training. And therefore, because of resource-intensive nature of this, it would be difficult for universities to kind of have a cross-cutting non-niched interest or focus across the 3 STEM areas. So it will be difficult to find, or rare to find, a university focusing in STEM and also focusing in sports and arts, and also focusing on social sciences.
Looking forward, what would be the main challenge, for universities to optimize on, the services that they offer?
I foresee a challenge in universities, kind of now, their mindsets changing. Because the current mindset of universities is to go out there and offer education in all the fields possible, and we have seen it. Even some universities, without naming names, that started on a technology and science-based situation, have now changed. They are now offering, business courses. They are now offering, basically, science and technology and engineering courses that they started with. What is the reason for that? The reason for that is survival. There's a lot of competition in terms of the number of students that are coming in. They are not enough for all the universities to share and still be in a sustainable position, and therefore universities have diversified. So that is going to be one of the main challenges. How will universities retract their current practice of admitting students in all the possible areas of learning that learners require? And how they address that, will really be very, very interesting. I don't want to pretend to offer a solution to that. Yes. That is a matter of each university looking at it individually and coming up with how they can address that.
But now, other than relying on government funding, what of alternative funding? How would universities can they leverage on alternative funding to do away with the funding challenges?
Funding, and you brought it very well, is one of the most critical, issues that need to worry universities, and it indeed needs to worry any organization that is in business. And universities are in business, only that their business is to offer services to the students. Relying on student funding, unfortunately, has been the mainstay of most, if not all, universities in this country. And to the extent that about 80 to 90% of university income, most universities' income, actually comes from student fees. Now, the danger with that is the number of students is not controlled. The number of students who qualify or who come to the universities is not controlled by the universities themselves. So the universities therefore need to look at some alternative sources of funding. And this has been done very well outside this country. If you go outside this country, in countries like South Africa, you have universities there that actually are integrating with the societies, with the communities, and through integration with the communities, they get support and sponsorship from the communities. Similarly, in our campus in Kisaju, in Kajiado County, we have very good understanding and cooperation with the community. And in fact, in Kajiado, we are already setting up what we call entrepreneurship hubs within the community, within the towns. For example, in Kisaju town where we are already setting up an entrepreneurship center or hub where we are going to integrate with the community and work with the community towards seeing how they can improve their businesses, those who have not started businesses, how they can start businesses, and so on, and then also partner so that we can do some research and find out how best we can offer solutions to the problems that are plaguing that community.
The cost of higher education is, far from the reach of a majority of, students and their families. How then do we make the cost of higher education more affordable?
Yeah, I think that is a tricky situation because the cost is normally driven by a lot of factors. There is the cost of the economy itself, coming from economy side. There is the program that the student himself or herself wants to pursue. If they want to pursue the STEM, then obviously those are more expensive because of what equipment and laboratories and so on that are required for that kind of training. One thing that can be done is to see, and unfortunately the government who could actually lower the cost of education directly, since most of the students who train in universities are actually sponsored by the government, is also looking for ways to generate money. So it is a dicey situation. It's very, very tricky how to lower the cost of education.
There's been a lot of talk that the reason why we have a high rate of unemployment among the youth is that in as much as they have gone through the system, they're still not qualified for the job market. Yeah. And that's why we've been having an uptick, in TVET courses. How can research, correct this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Regina. I think that is one of the most important issues that needs to be addressed because more often than not, we've had, industry players, including the public service, say that some students that graduate from the universities are not job ready or market ready in terms of being employed. And part of the reason why that happens is because there is not a very strong linkage between the universities and the industries and the industry sector and the universities, including the public service. So one thing that we need to do to correct that situation is to strengthen that link. The industry needs to appreciate, and when I talk about the industry, I'm talking about the employment, sort of sector in general, not necessarily just private or public sector only, but all of them. They need to appreciate the fact that the students that are being trained in universities are being trained to come and work with them, to come and work for them, and to come and ensure that there is economic development that is going on, and that this can only happen or can happen better if the industry players, public and private sector, allow students to go in there and get some experience, particularly during their training, and that is very, very crucial. Because then, when the students finish at the end of the day, then they will have acquired the practical experience that is required.
We're talking about the role that the universities can actually play when it comes to matters of innovation and incubation, gravitating and moving away from, seeking employment and being their own employers, entrepreneurship.
First of all, let me hasten to say that we as a university have set up an innovation and incubation center, which we have. And the way it works is we have set up systems where our students collect ideas or come up with ideas, and then we pass them through the system of evaluation, assessment, and modeling, coming up with a prototype of if it is a product. Then there's a prototype of the product, which product is tested, and then after that it is tested in the market and can be commercialized if it is found to be viable in the marketplace for commercial purposes. And we have a few students who have actually come up with systems. We also have what we call Innovation Week in the university, and during this Innovation Week, this is where students who have been pitching their ideas come and now pitch their ideas to a wider, selection of judges, some of whom come from the industry, some of them come from the industry, so that, we look at those from the practical nature of what solutions are they coming in to solve in the society, and so on and so forth. And whatever ideas that, are successful, that look, market ready, then we commercialize them, and we can even partner with other interested, organizations in the society.
Which areas as a university are you going to keenly invest on?
In management and leadership. That is what we focus on. And we teach management leadership in various disciplines. We do it in economics, we do it in fact, it cuts across all the professions, if I may say. Doctors can come in and, hone their skills and, learn further issues on management and leadership. Similarly, engineers come in, and we have students from across the divide. So for us, is niching on management and leadership, and that is what we are preparing ourselves, to.
Prof, correct me. Education falls under sciences, right?
Yes.
So as a university, you're inclined to more to STEM than the arts and sports and social and businesses. We are offering here education arts. So we are not on the STEM side. We are on the art side. So it would be in terms of maybe the pathway that would be relevant is in terms of arts and sports. Would a learner be best having gone through 844 or CBC, looking at the market needs currently?
Interesting question. And I say interesting because, and I said this earlier, 844 was begun on the basis of it coming in as a practical sort of oriented system. Unfortunately, the educationists kind of say that 844 was not a system per se, but 844 was more of a structure rather than a system. So a structure may have a lot of disconnects, and that is evident in how 844 ended up being more of what we call a summative sort of, a process rather than, something that is progressive. It was meant to examine students in a progressive manner. So I would say, and I also need to hasten to say that any system is as good as how it is implemented. And CBC is going a notch higher. It ends up with creation. And you have seen kids that are going through CBC actually dismantling laptops, dismantling mobile phones, and reassembling them. That is at primary level, okay? Even before junior secondary, they are doing that. And they are looking at the engines of models of the engines of vehicles and planes and so on. So they're learning through the practical experience, through a practical approach. That way, they are likely to end up being more practical in nature than what we call being theoretical, which is what we have now. And you asked me to link it to the TVETs. Yeah, this is very, very important because the TVETs, the TVET institutions, when we had a lot of people or kids going through the TVET system of education, we had ready availability of people at that level. Practical people. For example, people, plumbers, we had masons, we had carpenters, we had, qualified mechanics, and a lot of people were actually coming, supporting themselves through that. However, a time came when kind of the TVET institutions were reduced, and therefore a lot of people now started looking at how can we get the degrees to be able to earn a living. That situation is likely to change because with CBC, a kid graduating at junior secondary school level or senior high school level already has enough practical skills to enable them self-employ themselves. And that is where the country should be moving towards.
So we will not water down what Professor Washington Okayo the Vice Chancellor at the Management University of Africa has had to say in regard to where we're going with the implementation of the curriculum, competency-based curriculum that has been in place since 2017, and universities being challenged there to quickly adopt to the current system. The devil is in the implementation of this particular system. I'm Regina Manyara. You're watching Prime Edition on KBC Channel 1.